Abner visits the relatives. Amidst his journey of lands far and wide, Abner knew that he would eventually come close to his birthing grounds. This was not a place where Abner had any particular interest in revisiting, but he knew that if his mother got news of Abner evading a visit, he would never hear the end of it. It was with this in mind that Abner decided to stop in and say hello to his mom. Abner walked up to his burrow, where he had spent many a long summer days playing ping-pong with his late brother Harmon, and a chill traversed his spine. Abner felt uneasy, knowing something was not right, but he persisted and knocked on the door. He heard some scurrying about inside, and he heard the deadbolt undone from the front door, and the door opened a crack to reveal a peering eye. "Who's there?" came a voice that Abner recognized to be his mother. "Mom, it's me," Abner introduced. "Who is me?" Abner's mother questioned. "It has been so long, I forgot I even had a son." The door then swung open to reveal a hunched-over old gopher, looking as elderly as a gopher could look. "You don't call? You don't write? Mothers worry. What is wrong with you? You look thin. Have you been eating? You need a haircut." "Mother, please," Abner interrupted to break her out of what could have easily been an infinite ramble. "I was in the area, and I wanted to say hello. I cannot stay long." "Pish posh," Abner's mom brushed off her son's comments. "I know why you're really here. You heard that I was having a family reunion, and you thought you would surprise me. But I knew you would come." Abner's heart sunk as he knew that family reunion meant that not only was he going to be forced to see his family to whom he had distanced himself from, but he would also have to stay longer than he had initially planned to avoid being rude. "Great," Abner faked a smile. "I cannot wait to see everybody." Abner's mom brought Abner inside and led him into the den, which was filled with various vermin of all shapes and sizes, from porcupines, hamsters, and prairie dogs to gerbils, chinchillas, and groundhogs. They were amongst themselves when Abner's mother announced his arrival. "Look, my bubby showed up." Most turned their heads in acknowledgement. Some smiled and returned to their conversations. Others raised their glasses in cheer, but none approached. "I feel like no one likes me here," Abner whispered to his mom. "Nonsense," she assured. "Some are just uneasy that you killed your own brother." Getting irritated, Abner snapped back. "I did not kill my brother. Harmon sent me to prison, and while I was away, he could not take care of himself and grew weak. You were supposed to look after him. You always knew he was never good by himself," Abner's mom said while rubbing Abner's shoulder. "I asked you to look after him." "He sent me to prison, Mother," Abner reiterated. "I am not having this conversation." "You were always so sensitive," Abner's mom said, while changing moods from somber to cheerful. "Let me introduce you to your cousin. He traveled a long way to get here. He is from the guinea pig side of the family." Abner took a deep breath and walked over to a rather large brown and black-haired guinea pig, whose hair was unkempt and covered in cowlicks. "Hello, cousin," Abner greeted. "I am Miriam's son." The guinea pig extended his paw and shook Abner's paw heartily. "Nice to finally meet you. The name is Koi. Hey, stay a while. Let me take your coat. That is, unless it is attached." "Ha! That one never gets old. Now, Abner, I have heard quite an earful about you. Great lady your mom is. Heart as big as one could get without a tumor. I heard you are somewhat of a traveler. I do some traveling myself. Sailing mostly. I have a cruiser. I call it the Caveat. And she is the grandest vessel in all the waters. Speaking of grandest, how old is your mom? She's looking pretty aged. And you're looking pretty aged yourself. No offense meant. But she is as active as the dickens, let me tell you that." Abner listened intently, not at what Coy was talking about, but more for when there was a break in his ramble so that Abner could interject with an excuse to excuse himself from conversation. "Yeah, she is old. If you don't mind, there was one of my cousins I just have to say hi to. I'll be right back." As Abner walked away, he looked at the guinea pig, whose mouth was still moving, as if still talking. Abner had no intention of returning to the conversation, and he had no cousin to whom he must say hi. Abner needed a plan of escape from this situation. Abner was trapped with his relatives. Abner was familiar with the burrow and knew all the necessary terms of egress if an emergency arose, such as being caught in a conversation with any of the chipmunks, who he knew would just chew his ear off with nonsensical jabber. Abner tried to remain unnoticed, but it was too late. He was spotted by his aunt. Abner's aunt was a gopher of immense proportion, and she bullied her way through the crowd to get to Abner. "Hello, Abby," Abner's aunt yelled, along with a fair amount of cheek pinching. "How have you been?" "Fine, Aunt Cherry," Abner answered, purposely keeping the conversation simple to avoid derailing into why he never settled down. "So, how come you never settled down?" She jumped right in. "A good-looking gopher like you, and so smart. You never wanted a litter of your own?" "Just never found the right person," Abner said, knowing the response, as he had the same conversation many times prior. "You're no spring chicken," Aunt Cherry added. "Of course I'm not a chicken. I'm a gopher," Abner joked. "Don't you get smart with me," Aunt Cherry reprimanded. "But you just said I was so smart," Abner smirked. "Well, anyway, my friend at the hair salon has this daughter, who is single," Abner's aunt started. "Her name is Ro, and she is from the Dent family. I will give you her number. You should call her." "No, that is all right," Abner said, but his resistance was futile, as his aunt grabbed his paw and placed the number in it. Abner took this gesture as a sign that the conversation had ended, and turned and walked away. Abner thought the kitchen would be a good place to try and wait out the relatives, but along the path he was intercepted by Coy. "Hey, Abner, have you met Murray?" Coy gestured to a groundhog, who was laughing next to him. "He just came up with the darn thing. He said, since I am a guinea pig and he is a groundhog, we both must live in real sties. Get it? As in pigsties?" Abner smiled and imitated another laugh, and continued his path to the kitchen, where some of his more distant relatives stood. As Abner walked in on them, two shifty squirrels stopped what they were doing and looked at him. "What are you two doing?" Abner asked, noticing the degenerate looks on their faces. "Nothing," one said, as he slowly lowered a bag to the ground, away from Abner's line of sight. "Just cleaning up," the other said, stepping closer to the other, further blocking sight to the bag. "What's in the bag?" Abner interrogated, knowing that squirrels cannot be trusted. "Just leftovers. Miriam told us we could take some leftovers to store for the winter," one of the squirrels admitted innocently. Still not trusting them fully, Abner walked over and took a grab at the bag, which the squirrels pulled out of the way, and in doing so, spilled some of its contents on the floor. Everyone's attention turned towards the kitchen as food, silverware, glassware, pottery, hosiery, jewelry, and ant traps fell from the bag. "Thieves!" Abner shouted, in anger as the squirrels attempted to rob his mother. The squirrels dropped and crammed as much as they could, and back into the bag before picking up the bag and sprinting for the back door. Abner took off after them, and chased them for a furlong or two. Abner did not have the speed of the squirrels, but, as luck would have it, the squirrels were preoccupied with being chased and keeping a hold onto their loot, and did not notice that they were crossing paths with a herd of elephant traveling towards their winter homes. The southbound pachyderms trampled the two thieving squirrels to unrecognizable forms. Winded, Abner cautiously made his way up to the squirrel slush and grabbed the bag of his family possessions. Abner walked back to his mother's burrow, taking his time, still trying to drag out the time to his family reunion obligation. When he arrived, he was welcomed with applause, making Abner feel appreciated for the first time by his family. Abner smiled and handed his mother back the bag of items, most of which had been horribly shattered. "Thank you," Miriam whispered as she hugged Abner. "Now, why don't we gnaw on some chews? As a family, I am sure, after all this excitement, we could all use a little dulling of the incisors." With that, Abner felt part of his family again. They all sat in front of a log and reminisced of times of old, and planned for times anew. Abner was glad of his decision to stay, but thought it awkward that in order to be forgiven for the blame of killing one family member, he had to kill two more. The rationality of rodentia is not the easiest order to figure, but Abner was glad to be part of his kin once again.